talking Blood Machines. Now this one is directed and co-written by Seth Ickerman. Now this is a strange, surreal science fiction movie that is on Shudder, and they've actually split it into 3 chapters rather than having it through a kind of film, but I guess you could watch it as a film as well. And it's certainly a very surreal and trippy science fiction film. Now, I believe this is actually a sequel, or at least a kind of a continuation from a 2016 short movie. And it's a European flavoured movie. You can imagine the likes of Luc Besson being behind this. It kind of almost reminds you a little bit of the Fifth Element and things like that in a certain way. But it's maybe Valerian as well, that kind of thing. But it definitely has a very unique European flavour, and the cast and everything from various different kind of European countries. Although I believe it was French mainly, it was kind of filmed in France, I believe. So let's talk about the story, and I put air quotes in that. So the story here, we have these 2 guys, and I think there's some type of military contractors or something along the lines of that. It doesn't really make it clear. And they are in pursuit of a ship which has got a runaway AI system. Now, through some dialogue that is said in the movie, we pick up that there seems to be some type of AI uprising, and this is the problem that they're having. And they're trying to find this kind of, they shoot down this kind of rogue ship and ultimately try and land on this planet to try and, you know, capture it or something. When they're on the ship, they are actually approached by a number of female inhabitants of this planet, and they put them down as scavengers, and they are attacked. And we actually see that this downed ship, this AI ship, seems to have some type of soul, and it literally pops out in the form of this naked woman that flies off into space. Now, our 2 kind of military guys, although I'm not really sure if they're military, but who knows, they are perplexed by what they are seeing and decide to pursue taking one of the kind of female scavengers hostage. So they pursue this kind of female entity and then run into you know, a huge junkyard, and chaos ensues. That's all I'll say about the plot. So the plot is extremely slight. There isn't much to it than that. The thing here is all about the visuals and the music to a certain degree, I would say. But let's talk about those visuals. As I've mentioned, the visuals here are beautiful. And it will remind you of the kind of the 70s paintings that you would have seen. Things like that you would have got in the Heavy Metal magazine, and things like Frank Frazetta would have done, although it's more fancy, I suppose. But it's really kind of amazing to look at in regards to its visual style. It's absolutely incredible in regards to the budget that kind of clearly isn't massive, but they've done such a great job. And not only does it look good, it's just very unique in the way it looks. Like, the ships look, you know, very kind of unique, and it's obviously influenced by said kind of artwork from the 70s and 80s, but also things like Metropolis. Our main character's ship has this kind of AI that looks like it's obviously influenced by the movie Metropolis, things like that. So visually speaking, it's very, very impressive for the scale, what they've done, but also some very striking visual choices here. The souls of these kind of naked women have this kind of inverted cross, which obviously covers up their naughty bits, but obviously also brings about certain religious symbolism there. And symbolism is obviously something that this movie is very keen on, although I don't think it particularly translates well. I've also got to mention the music here by Carpenter Brute. I've never heard of them before, but an awesome synth-heavy soundtrack that I really, really enjoyed. It kind of reminded me of Lomatos from Turbo Kid movie, that kind of thing. I really enjoyed this kind of the soundtrack there. And the movie is quite punchy. It's very kind of quickly paced. It's not, you know, when you can combine the 3 episodes, it's not a particularly long film, and therefore it pretty much gets to the point. But therein lays the problem, that the fact that this movie is so just kind of like balls to the wall, you know, mind-expanding visuals. This will give you like, you know, if you've ever done acid before, I would suggest not watching this movie because Christ knows where you'll end up. But it will give you a very good representation of probably what it would be like to be on acid, I would imagine. So there you go. But the issue is that there's little to it other than that. The plot is kind of incoherent, to be honest with you. We get very little information about the status quo of what's actually kind of going on. The characters, like I said, I don't actually even know what these roles of these two guys are. Things like this, there's very little information, very little fleshing out of the world of the characters. And therefore, it just kind of feels very surfacey. And then we kind of go into the last episode or the last act, and it just gets absolutely crazy. I mean, who'd have thought the climax of a science fiction movie would be an interpretive dance number involving combat and naked women? But it is, that's what happens. Yeah, absolutely nuts, this film. But I think, although I can't really recommend it for a story-wise, visually it's very arresting. I've got to say as well, I think the acting's a little stilted. I think, to be honest with you, because this comes from Europe, and, you know, when I say Europe, I don't mean England, I mean, I think it's France, but it has a lot of European actors. They're obviously speaking English, which clearly isn't their first language, and therefore the acting seems somewhat stilted at times, and they're struggling sometimes to emote in certain ways and things like that. So it's certainly a bizarre experiment, and I think it's worth watching for that if you like science fiction and if you're interested in just like really cool visuals. But if you're a sort of person who is more on the lines of your favourite science fiction films are the slower paced, you know, 2001, that kind of thing, you know, even kind of things like Alien and that, this is not going to be the movie for you. This is pure visual spectacle. And I think the movie is trying to have these metaphors and analogies within the film, but I think the message is lost. I mean, maybe the film is trying to tell us that, you know, it's having some sort of men are misogynistic, that sort of thing, because they seem to kind of treat everything like objects, like women are objects, for example, or is it kind of saying, well, as we kind of, you know, call ships she and things like that, and is it like a cautionary tale with AI? I think the message is lost. As I said, there's also religious symbolism in it as well, but I just think they're chucking it all in, and there's all this stuff which is thrown in, and they've shaken it up and chucked it out on the floor, and it creates a lovely mess. And that's what this movie is. But it's still interesting. I would say check it out. I'll give it a 6 out of 10, just for its visual style alone, but don't be expecting anything too coherent. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.